Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are looking at a really profound, incredibly sudden shift happening right now within East Africa. Because in Uganda, corruption and power, well, they're deeply, intimately connected. It's like a giant puzzle where all the pieces are tied to political survival. And today, we're going to explore exactly how a completely untouchable political class suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders in what has been a very public, tense, and honestly, highly cinematic crackdown.
For years, ordinary citizens in Uganda just had to watch from a distance. They watched as really powerful politicians lived in absolute luxury. They'd see these VIP convoys aggressively moving through the busy streets of Kampala. Millions in public funds would just, poof, disappear. And the craziest part? Absolutely nothing would happen. There was this widespread, deeply ingrained belief that this specific political elite was completely untouchable. The rules? They simply didn't apply to them.
Okay, let's dive into this. In 2026, that illusion of safety was totally shattered. A phrase started spreading across the country, literally like wildfire: Operation Maliza Ufisadi. In Swahili, this translates directly to end corruption. But listen, this wasn't just another boring government white paper, and it definitely wasn't some quiet, behind-closed-doors commission. This was an explosive, aggressive operation that sounded and acted a whole lot like a military campaign.
Section 1. The Spectacle and the Untouchable Elite.
So, previous anti-corruption campaigns here, they often started with these massive promises and then just quietly ended up in a drawer somewhere. But not this one, no way. We saw high-profile, totally devastating raids across luxury neighborhoods, places like Nakasero, Kigo, Bukadea. Images absolutely flooded the internet showing armed tactical security personnel, heavy police trucks, and unmarked intelligence vehicles swarming these massive luxury residences. The optics were brutal by design. In Uganda's political system, when security agencies publicly move against you like this, it sends a crystal clear message: nobody is safe anymore.
Section 2. Targeting the Speaker.
And you have to understand, this operation wasn't just scooping up low-level bureaucrats. The primary target of these terrifying raids was one of the most powerful women in the entire country, Speaker of Parliament Anita Among. For years, she was the face of absolute political power. She'd survived sanctions, she'd survived intense criticism, and she controlled one of Uganda's most important institutions. But the armor started cracking. First, there was mounting public anger over the rising cost of living, which obviously contrasted sharply with these blatant displays of elite wealth. And then came the reports about a luxury Rolls-Royce. Because, let's be real, nothing screams humble public servant quite like a Rolls-Royce, right? Social media completely exploded. People were asking, how on earth can public officials afford these incredibly opulent lifestyles? Where is the money actually coming from?
But investigators weren't just looking at a fancy car. Actually, they launched a massive, sweeping probe into some very severe allegations linked to parliamentary officials. We're talking about alleged illicit enrichment, massive procurement irregularities, abuse of office, and even possible money laundering. Just like that, the very center of political power was, suddenly, the center of a massive criminal investigation.
Section 3. Enter the General.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the story expanded so rapidly, and it's all because of who stepped in to publicly back it. No one will be spared. The true twist here is the person who actually issued this warning: General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. He is Uganda's Chief of Defense Forces and, crucially, the son of President Yoweri Museveni. The exact moment he publicly defended these raids and issued this warning, he instantly changed the entire dynamic of the situation. This was no longer just a standard corruption investigation. It became a highly charged, highly visible political maneuver.
Section 4. The Midnight Withdrawal.
If there is one absolutely crucial thing to understand about Ugandan politics, it's that power can disappear incredibly rapidly the moment the system withdraws its protection. Just look at how fast this timeline escalates. In 2026, we get the sudden luxury property raids. Shortly after that, the scrutiny widens dramatically across Parliament. And then, late at night, an absolute shockwave. Anita Among abruptly withdraws from the race for Speaker of the 12th Parliament. She publicly cited consultations and introspection for her decision, which is a very sudden urge for introspection considering the circumstances. To observers watching this whole thing unfold, this midnight withdrawal looked exactly like the final stage of intense, crushing political pressure.
With the Speaker stepping back, a deep, deep paranoia gripped the rest of Parliament. The Criminal Investigations Directorate, the CID, started issuing summons. Senior administrators, procurement officers, human resource officials, and MPs were all suddenly subjected to intense financial scrutiny and travel monitoring. The climate of fear was totally palpable.
Nobody knew who was going to be next. Political alliances that had stood for literally years suddenly crumbled. Officials who used to love the spotlight, they started avoiding cameras, terrified of drawing any attention to themselves.
Section 5. Accountability or power struggle.
So this forces us to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. What does this unprecedented crackdown actually mean for Uganda, especially as the country approaches a highly sensitive political transition period? Well, the public reaction is deeply divided. Many Ugandans are celebrating this as long overdue accountability. They see a genuine confrontation of an elite class that has been untouchable for decades. However, critics remain highly skeptical. They view this as a selective political purge. To them, it's a weaponized succession battle just disguised as a cleanup. They point out that in Uganda, control over parliament means control over budgets, investigations, and ultimately political survival. Because of this, anti-corruption campaigns here often reveal far more about power restructuring than they do about actual corruption.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. Is Operation Maliza Ufisadi a genuine milestone for justice and accountability in Uganda? Will it actually lead to real prosecutions? Or, in a system where anti-corruption drives are historically used to settle scores and manage political transitions, is the biggest crime simply losing your political protection? That is the provocative question Uganda is waiting to answer, as a once untouchable elite finally learns exactly what it means to look over its shoulder.